Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I just came back from the theaters where I watched Hard Eyes. This video will just be a quick instant reaction review giving you my fresh, spoiler-free thoughts on the film. Let's get into it. Let's review Hard Eyes. To be completely honest with you, up until this week I wasn't really that familiar with who Josh Rubin was. Of course, after I found out that he was directing this movie and then I realized the College Humor connection, I was like, oh yeah, I remember this guy. I grew up loving and watching College Humor. I love those skits. So he is someone that I've known for a while, but I didn't realize he had become a director and I've never seen any of his previous work. So this was my first film of his that I've seen. And this is a very good first impression. He blends the slasher and rom-com genres in a really beautiful way. I thought that Olivia Holt and Mason Gooding did a good job. Their chemistry was believable and fun. They were a highlight of the film. The two had a very strong connection with each other, and the rom-com elements of the film I thought were executed pretty well, which allowed for those slasher moments to have a little bit more weight. Of course, the people that were being killed that weren't our main couple were pretty forgettable and their deaths pretty weightless, but they were still really cool and bloody and enjoyable to watch. This movie is super funny and just fun. It has a great energy to it. There's tons of fun references to horror movies that I think are put into the film in a much better way than a lot of other modern films do references. It was sort of quick little ones that you would blink and you miss them, but if you're fans of the movies that they're referencing, like Hot Fuzz or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, you would immediately make the connection, but it's not too smart for its own good. It's not too clever. It's not trying to impress you necessarily. It's just showing its love for the genre and for genre films in general, which I loved. Typically, it's pretty hard to execute a horror comedy very well. I think a lot of times it's either just very funny or it's not good at all, right? I mean, horror comedies typically aren't that scary, and I don't think Hard Eyes necessarily is scary, but slasher films to me aren't that scary. They're more about just being a fun, enjoyable thrill ride. Hard Eyes executes that well. It has some really good action sequences. It has some really good kills, slash and stock kind of sequences. I mean, as a slasher movie, it is well done as well. Both sides of the film are well executed. The rom-com is a bit generic. The slasher is a bit predictable. None of this stuff is necessarily things you've never seen before. So it's not like the smartest movie or the most clever postmodern deconstruction type thing. It's just a really solid, quick movie that moves very briskly and has characters at its core that you care about and some really gruesome, grisly kills, which I really liked. This is definitely something that I think horror fans will appreciate. We love watching really cool kills. And this is definitely a movie for purists, people that love horror movies, people that just enjoy a good time as well. But I think if you're a horror fan, you'll really appreciate what this film is doing. Now, look, if you don't like rom-coms, maybe you'll just be kind of turned away. But I think if you're a horror fan and you like horror comedies as well, this is definitely one you're not going to want to miss. I think that the killer has a really cool design. It's really iconic. And there is some really truly iconic kills as well that I think are going to be talked about, at least for this year, when you look at the end of the year stuff like best kills. This one will definitely have at least one that I think will be on those lists. In comparison to the modern Scream films, I just enjoy this movie a lot more. It's funnier, it has a stronger heart and core to it, and it has some really cool, gruesome kills and feels more creative, even though it's not reinventing the wheel. Direction was very impressive in this film, and I think Josh Rubin's someone I'll definitely have to keep an eye on and maybe look back at some of his older films. The screenplay was produced by Philip Murphy, Christopher Landon, and Michael Kennedy. Christopher Landon, of course, has worked on the Happy Death Day movies. I liked the first one. I haven't seen the sequel yet. I'll have to get around to that. But it definitely seems like these people have some pretty solid foundations within the slasher film, especially the modern slasher film, and slasher comedies, that kind of hybrid mix, which has become all the rage right now. In my last week's review on Grafted, I talked about how we were having a resurgence of body horror. That's on a much smaller scale to what's going on with slasher films, which are really becoming prominent once again. Obviously, horror is very cyclical, and right now we are in the slasher moment. It's a slasher moment, though, that I feel like is pretty reminiscent of the 90s, and this one does kind of have that 90s slasher feel because of the melding of genres, which is something that Wes Craven, of course, did very well throughout his career, but of course with Scream, him and Kevin Williamson really mastered the mixing of genres and being able to take horror comedy seriously and make it scary as hell. This one isn't as effective as that movie, of course. It's not going to have that kind of instant classic status, but it is a movie I'm intrigued to see how it continues to do at the box office, how horror fans respond. I just think it's a fun movie with a lot of heart to it. On a technical level, the film is very well made. I think in front of the camera, the actors did a very good job. Of course, outside of the main two, we still had fun performances from other people as well. Jordana Brewster, I enjoyed her performance. She's just a crazy character. I love her. I think she was really good in this film. So in conclusion, of course, I really liked this movie. If you're a horror fan, I definitely recommend you go and see it, especially if you're intrigued by the idea of a horror rom-com mashup. So that's it for my instant reaction fresh from the theaters. Thank you all for watching. Let me know down in the comment section below if you've seen this film, what your thoughts are, and I'll see you next time.